Alright. We on the Talk Podcast. I ain't got the thing. I got you. I do it like that.
I got you.
With my homie Hollywood. Tell me a little bit about yourself.
34, grew up in Durham all my life. From East Durham, Few Gardens, if y'all know where that is at. 3 kids, single father, a gamer.
Where can they find you?
Car enthusiast. You can find me everywhere at iHollywood Live, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. Everything is iHollywood Live.
I would just say me and you had a lot of conversations when it comes to
For sure.
stuff like this, actually.
For sure.
So like, I'll just start off with me and then you jump in. The topic of this is pretty much how does childhood trauma affect relationships? And I feel like personally for me is I was so used to taking care of people with issues maybe like that my mother had and me mostly living in the household with my mom, used to looking after my brothers and sisters and looking after my mother. I'm used to putting myself last. And to a certain extent, that actually went over into relationships too, where I focus more on the other people more than I focus on myself. So it's like, to a certain extent, I feel like me now, like being single for a while and like really looking back, I see that I don't think I was ever really happy because I always put other people before me. So it's like I always put me on the back burner. So like my needs and wants truly
Never be met.
never be met because I always would like brush them off. So like, have you ever seen that maybe things that you went through as a kid, how it maybe affected you in like with dating or even marriage or whatever? Like, have you ever seen how those things moved over into your later life?
For sure. I just want to start off by saying, admitting my wrongs, doings and the stuff that I took from my mom into my relationship. I just recently, a year ago, got divorced out of a 7-year marriage. My mom, I love her to death.
It just makes you like, we love our mothers.
Yeah,
but what happened?
The way that she raised me with the verbal abuse and seeing her fighting guys and stuff like that, I took that over to my relationship, like me verbally abusing my wife, like, just saying, my ex-wife saying stuff to her and thinking it was okay because it was done to me.
That was your norm.
That was my norm.
That was your norm. So
where my mom would say, shut the fuck up, bitch, and sit the fuck down. And I'm like, I'll go to her and be like, man, get the fuck out the way. And she'll be like, shut down. But in my head, that's normal.
Well, that's the language they spoke in your world. So
Correct.
It's almost like this is how we talk. So it's like,
right. It's like, why do you trip?
Yeah.
But I was insensitive. I was definitely verbally abusive and like to things that, and she didn't grow up like that.
Yeah.
So for, her parents were both together. They wasn't, the best, together, but they were definitely together.
Gotcha.
You know what I'm saying? So,
she had a mother and father.
Exactly. So where, they got animals and pets, and then when they die, it's a sad moment. Yeah. For me, it's like, let's get another dog. Like, get another dog, So for me, I was very insensitive, man. And I see a lot of wrongs that I did. So I had to.
But the funny thing about that is like too, is like from sound like we got a similar background almost to the point where you don't even have the ability to feel bad. Like, it's like almost like where you are in life or how you brought up is so much trauma that everything is about keeping moving.
It's a block. It's like, and I went to therapy and he talked about this, right? So whereas women, they have boxes and all those, he explained to me like this, all those boxes touch, everything touch. So everything is together, right? Whereas men, we separate and we what is it called? We compartmentalize stuff. So we'll feel something like, damn, that's fucked up. But then we'll keep going, like, we'll put it to the back of the closet and we won't open that box up no more. Like, anything that happened, like for instance, my brother passed away. I'm 16 years old. He's 14. He get killed. It took me 7 to 8 years to go back to that box. And it finally hit me like, my brother dead. He ain't never coming back. I get angry, and I was angry with myself though. Like, this is my fault. And you tend to blame yourself.
I remember you saying that.
You know what I'm saying? So for me, it took a long time for me to come out of that, you know? And then once I got out of that, it was just my grandma passed. So it's a lot of things, man.
But like, that's survival mode?
It's definitely survival mode. I feel like it's definitely survival mode where it's like, and that's one of my sayings, actually. We have to learn how to stop. We got to stop surviving and live. We got to stop surviving and learn how to live. We as African Americans, as Americans in general, the minority, we're out here day to day, month to month, check to check, scraping. And so many people get so stuck in that norm. That's the norm for them.
Yeah.
That they just, you know, it's just whatever.
But it also, like we were just saying, like it also comes from that situation of like our childhoods, the traumas we went through in our childhoods. It's almost like you were kind of like born and bred into survival mode to the point where like you don't see it. Like you had to actually, like we started thinking about how our childhood affected us as adults. But it also had to come a point in time where you could slow down enough to even be like, oh, like something ain't right.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, it's like if you in the midst of trying to pay bills or you dealing with a lot of drama around you, you don't have
to think about that. You don't got the time.
Because you made me think about it just now. You said you didn't deal with your brother's death for like 7 or 8 years. And I'm sitting here thinking like, so imagine between the time he passed and the time that you had to really face it, what was going on in between,
right? To
the point where you couldn't even focus on that.
Exactly. I couldn't even mourn my brother. First off, I packed it and I put it in the back of the closet. Then life hit. You know, you start having kids.
Yeah.
You gotta do this. You gotta do that. You know, and you're not worried about that. You feel what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Just like you said, and. To go back and touch on what you were saying, you said it takes so long for us to figure stuff out. This is why a lot of men suffer from, you know, trauma. Their trauma, it hits them in their 30s and 40s, and you like, why is this man not a grown man? He can do this, he can do that.
He was stuck though.
No, he was stuck. But when women look at a man and say, "You a grown ass man, why you do this? Why you do that?" No, it's because that's how you see it. That's how that person sees it. You get what I'm saying?
They don't have the same history.
They don't have the same history. So where you can see in this is the analogy I'm gonna use. When you're looking at the Matrix, right?
Yeah.
And you see the green lines, Morpheus can see in the Matrix and see what he can see. When you look at it, you just see green lines. You get what I'm saying?
You got to be to that point.
You got to be to that point.
And because they might have not came up in trauma,
right?
They don't see the things that might have been holding that man back.
They're already ahead of you.
Yeah,
already ahead of you mentally, and they're more mentally stable. Meaning they can, like you said, they can see more, they understand more, and where your common sense, you be like, man, that's common sense. To somebody else, might not be. You get what I'm saying?
I think too. A thing is too. Also, in the midst of being brought up in trauma, and that going over to how you dealing with your significant other, with your girlfriend or your wife, whatever, it's the communication is going to be off because us as black men, even especially if you came from trauma, we're not taught to communicate.
Correct.
At all.
Correct.
So then
shut up.
In a lot of cases, it turns physical because I don't like. Now imagine. I don't know how to communicate, but you did something that hurt. Like, I'm a man, but it hurt my feelings.
Yeah.
But I don't even want to say that because then I think you think I'm less of a man if I say you hurt my feelings.
Right.
So now it turns into like an argument, and then at some point it might become physical. Because I worked downtown at the Durham jail for 3 years, and the number one charge,
domestic violence.
assault on female, assault on a female. Because we are not, when we cry, when we little boys, we get punched in the chest, as they say, toughen up. When she cried, they say, what's wrong? Tell me what's going on. We are taught over time that whenever we express ourselves when it comes to our emotions, we are met with adversity. So it's like we in our damn near 30s
trying to learn how to unpack our feelings
or be civilized.
Yeah.
Like we almost in savage mode. It's to be honest with you, bro. I look back at my past and how we've been conditioned through school, in our households, in different situations, and like even me and you know what I'm saying, with all the things we've been through in front of people and not in front of people.
Right.
It's amazing we're alive.
Right.
Because everything we've been taught, everything we have been conditioned to fail.
Not only alive, but free.
Oh, bro, yes. Bro,
because it's so easy
bro.
To go across that road.
No, 100%. Because everything you're taught as a male is to go across that road.
Right.
That's what make you a man.
Yeah.
You don't let nobody talk to you crazy. You don't 100%. Let nobody do nothing to you.
100%.
If you don't let nobody, like, damn, bro, you fighting the world for the rest of your life. Yeah. So imagine you a man with all these different feelings and that same mindset. Don't let nobody. Now you feel like your woman just disrespected you, and you can't even communicate with her. And now you getting aggressive. So like, it comes to a point where, to be honest with you, bro, we have to start teaching the young boys early because it's amazing for us to be here and, like you said, be free. But it's almost like we were granted a gift to get to that point.
Right.
So like somebody else, like we have to instill this into our sons, this same information. So like, cause they might not.
For sure. So I think as far as that goes, I felt like we caught our programming at a certain time, which is late for a lot of people. You know, if you say 33, 32, you be like, man, you are a grown man now. That's late. But for me, it's not late.
No.
I caught my programming at the right time, and I'm reprogramming myself.
Yeah.
Which is one of the hardest things for a male to do.
Everything that makes sense.
Because everything that makes sense, you have to debunk it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everything that makes sense, you have to debunk
100%.
it and rebuild it.
100%.
And who wants to fucking start from the beginning?
And who wants to face themselves?
Exactly.
Like one thing I say, like
that's one thing I had to do.
One thing I think was like amazing, you know, just for the start of this conversation, where you started off the conversation with saying, let me first say with the part I played. Yeah. Let me first say like what I did wrong. And I think that in a relationship, even for you to come from the trauma that you come from, bruh, that statement in itself was like enormous, because what you're saying is, I'm not a victim.
I'm definitely not a victim.
Because you know what happens when you a victim?
Yeah.
You don't really change.
Right.
You just say, they did this to me. They did this to me. They did this to me.
Yeah.
And until you can be like, well, I played a part by doing this,
100%.
You can't change.
You're going to stay complacent. You're going to stay in the same spot. That literally was, I was playing victim, but it was like in a sense where I didn't know that I was playing victim.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? It was like,
you're not aware.
She's doing this to make me feel like this. She's doing this and I feel like this. When all actuality, when I was fat, I could have got up and went to the gym. That's on me. Why you keep getting chips and snacks and honey buns and shit? I'ma eat it. You know I'ma eat it. But that's on me. You know what I'm saying? So a lot of things that I was doing and saying to this woman, I could have stopped and read it, you know, discipline.
Yeah.
Learn discipline. So, yeah, man. I mean, if you keep playing victim, you're definitely gonna be in the same spot.
Yeah. And I think another thing too, just like to wrap some of this up, what advice would you give to a black boy or a black man to even be aware of this process that we need to go through?
That's deep. I mean, it's so much. First thing I would say is awareness. You know, self-awareness. Like, understand what you like, what you don't like, what's your do's, what's your don'ts, like what you can take and what you can't take. You know what I'm saying? Like, once you start learning yourself, you can understand another person better.
But you know how big that. No, okay. Think about this. In survival mode, you don't really know who you are. You're reacting to your environment. Oh,
Correct.
We react to our environment so much that your personality looks like your reaction.
Right.
But that's not who you are. It's almost like, and not to like point at you, but
yeah,
I see. No, I remember us having many conversations in the beginning of your divorce process.
Oh yeah.
And then me seeing you now.
Oh yeah.
And bruh, the way you talk, the way you talk, the way you walk, the way you move, your mindset.
Yeah.
But I will say this though. I will say this though. I'm not gonna say it's a complete 180 because I think personally you were always a good dude.
Right.
Like your core.
Yeah.
Like your core, you was even before all of this, you was trying to do like community stuff with the kids and like your core has always been. But that's the thing though. If a person doesn't have that push in them to want to be better than what is around them, like, and that could have been the amazing part to get you where you are because a part of you always wanted to be better. You see what I'm saying? So like, I see that, but I also see now look what happens when you became aware though. So you take that push, then you take being aware, then you create a monster.
Correct.
Like a whole new kind of monster.
You can put a bull in a room in the dark. He's just gonna tear that shit up.
Yeah.
But once you get the light,
see that flat and
you know
the direction to go.
I know.
Yeah.
Controlled chaos.
Yeah.
It's controlled chaos at that point because you know what damage you can do.
Yeah.
I know I can run through that wall.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But you don't want to, waste your energy.
That's
so
right.
if I know what's going on, I can tear it up now. You know
what I'm gonna say too? I'm gonna say too the process is also a blessing.
Yeah.
Because imagine, some of the things that we've been through in life to get us to this point. We already know what we're capable of.
Right.
We already know we've been tough enough to go through.
Right.
So I feel like this part of life, bro, it's like you really unstoppable.
Right. It should be easier. Everything later in life, we are not taught finance. We're not taught behavior, like how to control your behavior and how to, your emotions and stuff like that. It starts at home.
Yeah, 100%.
So once you have your kids, you start there. If you don't have any kids and you want to do community work, fine. But start with your kids because that's where it's really going to start. Like if I teach my daughters FREE, all that from the get-go, it's going to be like, you're going backwards. You know what I'm saying?
And then they gonna have to get to it. See, the crazy part about that is then, like we just talked about in the beginning with the childhood trauma, then you have to get to a point in life where you done fucked up so much. You like, hold on, I don't like the way this feels.
You done ran into that wall 1,000 times.
Yeah. So it's almost like, but that's the part of it that I feel like is the hardest part because I think as males and on top of that as black males, we are conditioned and taught by the world to do everything that would destroy us. And then on top of coming up from having some issues with childhood trauma, poverty, imagine like thinking that you're less than, having low self-esteem, then imagine wanting to be seen. See, everybody wants to feel important. Everybody wants to be seen.
Correct.
So imagine what you'll do for that.
Exactly.
Based on your community. And your community, it might be a community over here in the good part of town where they say, hey, if you a scholar, you making all A's and we recognizing you. But in another community, like who's selling the most? Yeah, who can fight the best? Who's selling the most drugs?
Right.
So like, depending on your community with those ingredients,
the path you're gonna take. That's the path you're gonna take for real.
Could be crazy.
And it's crazy though because that kid could very well be the scholar in that environment, but he can't be the scholar because he's in this animalistic environment. So when you grow up as animals, you can't be a fucking rabbit in there with wolves.
No,
they're gonna kill you.
And in the moment you find that out, you gotta switch it up.
Yeah.
Because I think the problem is now imagine this. Imagine I'm from the good neighborhood, but we all go to school together.
Right.
And I start seeing, okay, at school, when I go to school, shoot, it's all about who can stand up for themselves, who not gonna let nobody punk them.
Yeah.
Who will be the wildest. So it's like, I was telling somebody in another podcast that so the value changes. The value of you as a person, how people look at you when you in certain places, it's based on you doing negative things. And if you scared to do them things, it's like your value goes down. So if you don't have good self-esteem, you don't have, So think about it. If you come from childhood trauma and you don't feel good about yourself and you think your parents might not love you properly, you more apt to act crazy in this environment because you don't get that fake love, that attention.
I feel like that's easy. You're easy to manipulate.
100%.
You're easy to manipulate.
You actually need it.
Yeah.
You need it as fuck. Like I had to look at myself. Like why I keep getting in these situations. Like I think I'm needy. Why do I need this recognition or this, that, and the third? It's because I'm not getting it at home.
Right.
But I can go out here. Like I remember just the simplest thing.
That was my problem.
The simplest thing is selling weed. I remember selling weed like middle school, high school, and just the attention I would get from selling weed.
It make you feel like you the man.
You important.
Yeah.
Hey, kid, what's up, bro? Yo. Like everybody want to talk to you. Everybody trying to get some butt.
Right.
You the man all of a sudden because you got something that they need. But when I go home, my parents might not treat me. Might not even ask me how my day was.
Right.
Ask me about the homework. But when I go to school, I got the weed, so I'm the man.
Right.
So imagine like it's a recipe.
And it goes from high school, you get into a relationship. And now you're not the weed man, but you're a husband, but you at work, you're working all these hours and you paying for the house and stuff like that. And you coming home to nothing.
Yo, you just, okay. I like how
See
you
what I'm saying?
did. No, I like how you
feel
did that. No, you just did some shit.
Yeah.
You switched the validation to marriage.
Exactly.
The validation that the man needs to feel important is to satisfy his woman.
Right.
For her to have the things she wants. But at the end of the day, just like the situation with the weed, the situation at home,
right?
I was never in the equation.
You never felt important.
Yo.
So when
unless they getting what they need,
let's go exactly the weed,
or the bills paid, or nice pocketbooks and trips.
In that story, the weed would be what
validated. It's got to be validated.
Yeah, when you getting validated for it. So let's take it here. So once you in school and you getting the validation from all these different people. See, it's not a relationship. It's kind of a relationship with, you got a buyer and you the seller.
But it's not real love.
It's not real.
Yeah,
they just only want what they can get from you.
They want because you got something.
Okay, so let's take it to the relationship, right? Yeah, you're in a relationship with a person, you paying all the bills and stuff like that. Why do people stay with you that long? And knowing they don't even like you?
Because they're comfortable.
Because you got something that they
want
already, and they're comfortable.
You still selling weed at the crib.
You still selling weed at the crib. So once you get into that relationship and then they finally, I'm tough enough to move. No, you just
soaked up what you
done soaked up, and now you can move because you either A, you found somebody else that can supply that, or B, you done stepped up and you like, I don't need you no more. Or you got to the spot where you need to be and they gone.
Because they've been positioning themselves
the whole time.
Because if you take care of everything, then they bread going to their bank account.
But
see, but I think the thing is too with relationships, with me learning this after being married twice, is I gotta know like, okay, then what does this person bring to the table?
Right.
Like, cause I realized like in the last, like I had another podcast and they were saying, you gotta look at your wife almost like your like a business deal. Like what's her credit like? What like look at like not just emotionally.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what? Bro, I would never talk that.
No.
Like even in that conversation, I had to pause. Like you can see me pausing. I'm like,
yeah.
I never thought that. Nobody told me to do that.
Exactly.
Everything has been emotional, and emotions get you in trouble every time.
So this is where the world, and I was just having this conversation with a female. This is where the world has switched. Men need a certain type of thing, and women need a certain type of thing. When women come into a relationship, most of that stuff is emotional.
Yeah.
But if I'm a man and I'm reacting off emotions, how am I different from my woman?
You're not much different.
You're not much different.
You're not much different.
Yes, I can feel for you. Remember what you said, the credit, the stuff like that. I need to know if you can hold me down.
Yeah, if it get real.
I need to know if it's a safe space.
100%.
I need to know if you can be able to take care of children.
Hell yeah.
Only thing, these are things that men need to know. They didn't know if you're a safe space. That's first thing foremost. Okay? If you can raise kids, and I'm sorry, women, but we need sex, okay? I'm sorry. Like, I'm just saying, like, don't use that as a weapon. You feel me? Because once you start using that as a weapon, you are a manipulating person. And then they don't want to say they manipulated or narcissistic, but that's manipulating and narcissistic. You see what I'm saying? So that's how I look at things, man. Everybody, you can't, I don't know, man. Everybody's different, but I would say majority of men would want those three things
100%.
in a woman. You get
And
what
I think
I'm
the safe space part, where I am in life now, is like, okay, so I'm starting to get to the point where like that safe space make everything else better, the sex better, everything, because I legit feel it's like it's not.
You want to be there,
Yeah, bruh.
You want to be there,
bruh. And if I want to be there, I want to please you.
Exactly.
I want you to feel good.
And you can lay there.
Yeah.
Listen, I don't need to stick it in. Yeah. I'm just going, listen, I'm going to go to town. If I want to be there. You know what I'm saying?
So I think so,
Yeah, man.
so
You know what I'm saying? See, I'm tired of hitting mother and telling peace out. Peace out, man. Get out of here, man. You know what I'm saying?
Like, we'll talk for a little while.
Gotta go work in the morning.
Hey,
So it's like that, man.
Yeah.
It's like that. So going back to what you were saying as far as like childhood trauma and how does that affect relationships? It affects it a lot,
100%.
100%, because a person that didn't grow up like you won't see your point of view or see where you're coming from, and they'll say you're crazy.
Yeah.
You need help.
But you was brought up in crazy.
But I was brought up in craziness. I'm not crazy. That's how I feel. I'm not crazy.
100%.
But yeah, it just, like I said, there was a lot of things I had to work on, man. I had to go to therapy. I had to work on
So that's what you would tell them. You would tell them to go to therapy. Like,
go to therapy, definitely.
Something.
If you went through anything as a child, you need to unpack that shit. There's boxes that you have not unpacked, and it needs to be unpacked before you unpack it on the wrong person.
100%.
That's it.
So I would say in closing, he hit it on the head. If you knew you went through some traumatic stuff as a kid, some things that you might not want to talk about,
right,
some things that you might not want to think about, that's a sign that something's wrong.
Right.
You should take the time to work on that before you get into a relationship, because it 100% spills over into a relationship.
It does.
Man, thank you, brother, man.
Hey,
I appreciate you coming,
man.
man.
Yeah, you already know.
Perfect.
Okay, we just my feet. Oh, my feet. My feet.